Okay, good morning. It's Friday morning here with Michael McCullough on Eyes of the Universe. And this morning we're going to be talking about the solutions for community development. And we've touched on a lot of this in previous shows. And last week we had a teacher from Chicago talking about the issues going on in education, the educational system, that the issues, well, the problems that they see as teachers with the students, the system that they have to work through. And we typically try to get ideas from people. So we're going to hear your ideas as you're listening in. If you want to call in, we call in at 1-888-395-7257. You can see this here, 888-395-7257. We want to hear from you for solutions to community development. And as was mentioned with teachers, Ms. Nelson has some ideas that she gives just involving making sure you have more parental involvement with your student, with your child, per se, and it goes a long way when the parents are involved in the child's education and also being involved with the school system. So from a teacher's perspective, they're bound by the laws that are made, and oftentimes we don't know what's going on because we're not involved enough. And so laws are enacted that affect the educational system. Things that don't work are initiated, and the teachers are bound by it because that's their jobs, such as the massive testing that's going on with students, where they basically have to learn the test instead of just education. Well, those are laws that are put in place, and the intentions might have been good, but they're not initiated in a way that is helpful. But being in the system themselves, they have to follow what's written. So that means for us as a community, now that we know these things are happening and our children are being just tested but not learning how to apply this in real life, we have to be more involved. And it takes it further than just voting. You have to be involved before the things are, these laws are even written. That's where it starts. You have to be involved at that point. Then when the vote goes out, you've already had a voice in what was written to vote on. But by the time it's on voting, you have to just say yes or no to what they're saying. And so we have to move beyond just saying, let's go vote. You have to go into when it's written, when the meetings are done. Yes, we all have to work. We're tired. And they usually hold these meetings in times where we are just getting home, or some of them have to work at night. So, some say that's set by design, and that might be true. But you still have to go out. You have to show up and do this. So that's part of the solutions. And there's going to be a lot of solutions to it because the problem is systemic, meaning there's a lot of elements, a lot of components that go into what caused it. But a lot of times it was the lack of action on our part that caused the problems to persist or to grow. And one of those is the educational system, like I mentioned, where we just weren't involved. And I'm saying myself too, I need to be more involved myself. But those who are continuously involved, we thank you very much for your involvement. And we ask you to continue to urge others to come in and help out, because we need to hear from a number of people. So solutions to community development. So education is one of them. What we are proposing also, we call it Silicon Valley in the Hood, and I named it that way. And it deserves a better name, but we call it that because a lot of people know what Silicon Valley is here in the United States, an area of the country in California where a lot of businesses, a lot of people out of their garages, out of their homes, made computer businesses. They all collaborated together, and it became a whole community, Silicon Valley. And out of that, you have your Googles, your Apples, Microsoft, all of these other companies coming out of Silicon Valley. And some people are saying, well, so let's put more representation, diversity into Silicon Valley. Well, we're saying make Silicon Valley in your neighborhood, or we just call it the hood if you're from the areas that refer to the hood, but that's what the hood means, is neighborhood, your own area. Make your own area an area of innovation, an area where ideas come together and are worked out to completion. Not just talked about and not just discussing the problems, but actually working things and making solutions, making products, making things together. And so that's one of the solutions that we're talking about, but it covers so many areas because it also covers things like jobs. There's only so many companies out there, so many occupations. Economy goes up and down, but if you can start your own business, or your friends, your family can get together and start something on your own, that's the jobs. Those are the jobs right there. You're not having to worry about somebody laying you off, hoping that the factory doesn't shut down, hoping that, you know, the big time executive area that you're working on doesn't lay you off because you've been working there for 20 years and maybe that's all you know. But we're saying start your own business. Work on something on the side. You may not have to do that full time, but always have something as a backup. And then hopefully that can grow, or that for looking for, as a community perspective, that may present opportunities for others. You might not want to do this on your own. You might like where you're at right now. But in the community development, the first thing is community. It means looking out for one another. And when looking out, if everybody's looking out for the next person, that means a whole bunch of people are looking out for you. But if I'm looking out, everyone's looking out for themselves, that means there's only one person looking out for you, and that's you. And we don't do a great job at that all the time. So if we have community, if we think in a community mindset, no, we're not saying that, hey, you know, if someone doesn't work, we're all taking care of them. No, it's community. Everybody's working. Everybody is doing something. You know, if it's nothing but just coming up with just an idea or seeing how a different way of doing things, everyone is involved, from children all the way up to the seniors in the community, because that's what it is. It's a community. So Silicon Valley in the hood, bringing innovation in your neighborhood. The next part of that, number 2, is gain public support for innovation in your community. And for public support, that's the marketing of it, that is the public outcry, that helps, but you have to go further beyond that. And the support means you have to actually have people doing it, getting involved in making it happen. And that means going to your city office, your local offices, and understanding the laws that require that issue the requirements for starting a business. We're in Houston, so sometimes things are maybe different for other cities. It may be harder for other cities. Certain cities are more restrictive of what types of businesses are allowed in those communities. Sometimes those laws may be discriminatory in that they may only allow certain types of businesses but not others that could possibly help. But they'll allow us, for instance, you can get a liquor license and start up a liquor store easily in certain neighborhoods. But try to start something where there's innovation required, that there's something that's going to help, and they had more stumbling blocks, more difficulties. So that's back where I said earlier, as a community, you have to get involved with those laws. You have to fight back, basically, with what's going on. So, and I see some people coming in from the UK. So tell me about what areas in your community can be improved on. How can you improve your communities? I don't know much about the UK, so you have to tell me so to help others out there. So, you know, and he said, hey, I'm not going to repeat that, but he said, hey, what if their situation is not so good? Why complain? Do something. So what can you do? You know, so if you have no ideas, keep listening in. Stay tuned until you get something so that you can find out what we're doing. So speaking on terms of improving the situation in our community, is that you have to gather, like I said, gather and support. That means working with one another. Find a way to establish a relationship with the persons next to you, your next door neighbors, the people that go to your church or your school. Understand how they see things, express how you see things, and try to make things better for one another. And that, in saying all of that though, when you're working together, making things better for one another, you're going to get a chance to see things from a different perspective that you might not have seen before. And so when you start working with one another, you're going to see ways that, hey, now I can see, if I have some ideas, how this person will be able to benefit from it, and vice versa. I might have to change some things that I might have thought about beforehand to help somebody out. Also, educating yourself. That goes into educating yourself. If I can educate myself, there's a lot of opportunities, like on the internet. There's a number of things that you can go to, a number of sites that you can go to help educate yourself on. If it's a particular craft, you might have a certain skill in a certain area, but you're missing, say, the latest in machining or the latest in sewing, or a certain technique. Educate yourself to fill in those weak spots, or social groups that specialize in those areas. You can start visiting, collaborate on. We got about another minute before a commercial break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk more about educating yourself and gaining public support, as we're talking in depth about the solutions to community development. So stay tuned. We're going to do commercial breaks. Just so those are on Periscope. Just stay tuned. We're going to be right back.
You're listening to the Bridge of Light Radio Network, where conversations lead to real change.
Okay, we are back again with Eyes of the Universe. This is your host, Michael McCullough, and we're talking about the solutions for community development. And since I'm more of the innovator type, I kind of spin this on a innovation kind of mindset here. But we were last talking about gaining public support and educating yourself. And when we're talking about support, I wanted to iterate, because I saw a couple of comments come up about some of the issues with police and such. That's part of it, of gaining the support. Talking to the leaders in the police department. Who are they? Do you know the police officers that are in your neighborhood by name? So these are things that you can go into as a community member and gain familiarity, be more familiar with people, because that's what it comes down to, the human element. When you can get to the human element, not the so much professional and all of this high up area, but we're all people. So if you can know people as people, it helps in bridging the gap, getting relationships built up within your community. So that's one of the areas that you can do. It doesn't matter your educational level, your age, or what. What's on the human level? Meet person to person. Let's get to know each other there. And so I encourage people to visit their government offices, know who the people are on a personal level. If you just have to talk with them, or just show up at the meetings. And police also. I say even military. If you have a base on your town, in your area, so visit some of the troops, see what kind of life that they have, or engage with them if you're not a military member already. These are ways to bridge the gap so you can see what they see from their perspectives, and they have a chance to hear from you as a community member. And that way, when things are done, they know you. You know them, and things can that gap starts to close in, because now you're becoming more a community. You're building that relationship. The churches also, whether you go to church or not, I think the churches are still a cornerstone to the community, and where a lot of people of different backgrounds go to. And so that's another important area. You got to get involved with one another. And I'm a Christian, and these are one of the things that the Bible teaches. So when you apply the Bible, not just say religion, you can light candles and crosses and whatever. That's religion. But when you get down to the principles of what the Bible's talking about, that it still is referring to community, loving your neighbor as yourself. So I don't care if my neighbor is the president, a CEO of somewhere, store owner, whatever. Loving them, showing genuine concern for one another, now you're making that bridge. And that is actually what's building a community. That's one of the solutions to building it. So that's part of the gaining public support. Then while you're doing that, throw out your ideas to people. So if you have some ideas, I encourage you to continue always thinking about something new. As an innovator, I'm always thinking about something new. Write it down, either a napkin, a piece of paper. I have this little this little tablet thing that I'm writing on, write it down and then share it with some trusted people. So how you guys doing? So when you're writing your ideas down, think now you're challenging yourself. How do I make this idea possible? And spin it off with somebody. So if you have a new type of, if you're a cook, you like to cook things. How does this taste? Ask someone's opinion. Or if you like to make things, like I'm a person that likes to make things. Okay, can you use this device that I've made? What improvements do you think I should make on it? You're engaging people. You want to hear their opinions, and they're gonna feel that you value what they're talking about, because you do. You want to know how they feel about it. And then while you're doing that, think of ways to work together. So as you bridge those relationships, now you're going to discover ways where you can work together instead of working against each other. Now, granted, businesses, there's competition and there's different schools of thought on business where strict competition and stuff and such. You know, you can take it or leave that. I modify on that and say we all can work together. Even if both of us, say, may have a donut shop right across the street from each other, there are still ways where both of us can gain. We don't have to trash each other. We don't have to bring each other down. But there are ways that we can both gain and support one another. Because in a business sense, to those who are more business-minded, you're looking to gain profits. So if both of you are trashing each other, that means both of you are losing out in some way or form, some form or fashion. But if you work together, you figure out a way. I don't know your industry, but if you figure out a way where both competitors can work together and establish a healthy competition, then actually more people will end up buying both of your products together. And again, the community will begin to support it. So in working together, I like to also mention the 2 points is that of working together, using your differences. So I like differences, especially when I'm working on our telescope project. Macho Mingi uses a number of telescopes that operate together to work as one. We're going to look at stars and galaxies, planets. I need a lot of different people working on this, people of different backgrounds. I'm a systems type of person, engineer. I see the vision, the full vision, but I need different people working on different parts. And your area is going to be similar. You have to look for those differences. And those differences might be found in anybody. We get ideas from little kids for our real project. Differences, different culture, different backgrounds, because those different perspectives, when everyone's looking at solving the problem, is particularly when you start diverging on things like what's the truth. We all have a different side. We all see things from a different side of view. But as long as we're looking at the same thing, we're going to see something from a different perspective. And your differences are going to help me understand the things that I see. And we're going to be able to work together in a better, more efficient fashion, because we're utilizing our differences. Similarities work in that you can combine common strengths. Okay, so if both of us have, I don't know, both of us, I'm an engineer, so if you and I are an engineer and we're working together, we're going to see things in a similar fashion. Okay, and we're going to be strengthened from that, because there might be some engineering concepts I forgot that I learned, but you might remember. So we're working off of each other. But say somebody else comes in and they're a entertainer, okay? They're going to have a different perspective on what we're trying to do. If I'm building this telescope system and I'm saying, hey, what is this that we're trying to do? And yes, this is the just for those who are coming online, this is the Bridge of Light Radio Network, and this is Michael McCullough on Eyes of the Universe. So those of you who are just stepping in, we're talking about the solutions for community development, and we air on every Friday. So when we're coming in discussing this, they're going to bring a different perspective to the problem. They're going to bring a different idea that maybe you and I as engineers, the other guy as an entertainer, he comes in, or he or she comes in, they're going to tell us something that we didn't see. From our education and background, we're only looking at things from one side, but they see things from a total different angle that they can inform us about and even do. So back to community development, you might have the technical, but you're going to need somebody to advertise. You're going to need somebody to talk about it, and make it popular. So you're going to need that other person to come in. So the common strengths and the differences all working together, that goes on to working with each one another. Cultural backgrounds, you know, those play a big part because that goes into the way of thinking. Culture is part of thinking. We're all human beings, and we're all part of the family. So as we have gone into different countries and different nationalities, we're still part of being a human race. And so really, the concept, and I'm not going to get on this too much, but the concept of race is really an outdated old concept. It's really families and cultures is what it really is. And so that means there are changes in mindsets, changes in the ways of thinking, which goes into traditions, and that's how your traditions have formed and such, because the certain events that have happened, history, and that particular family responded to it in a certain way, so they'll have a celebration about it and blah blah blah. That's your tradition now. That's how you do. That's how you dress. That's how you dance. Those all came in, but those are ways of thinking. And so as you go to people of other cultures, that brings in another way of thinking. So as a business owner, as an innovator, you want to have people of various cultures come in, because that gives you another perspective to the problem that you're trying to solve. And it's going to enhance it. It's going to enhance what you're doing because you've thought about it. You've thought about it from a number of different angles. And the next point I want to bring up is steady work. Once you've got the people, you've got the collaboration, you've got the excitement, you've got the different cultures and different viewpoints, you've got the steady work. You have to work at it in a steady fashion. I'll just say steady work, but you've got to work at it consistently. A little bit at a time. It's not always this massive rush, unless that's your work style, but you're going to drive everyone else crazy. So it's a steady work. And I say steady because a little bit at a time, because you have a life outside of work. You have a family. You might, there's some of us who have families. As far as I'm a father, I have 3 kids, and you might have just brothers and sisters that you live at home with or such. But there you have a life outside of work. So if you're doing work, do it in a manner that's steady, not just massive chaos. And that particularly goes for the entrepreneurs. I've heard a lot of different people saying, I started a business and I, had heart problems and I lost my marriage and blah, 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 but I got my business running. When you put too much time in something, you take away from other things. But steady work means I just put the time in that I have. You have only 24 hours in a day. Part of that you need to sleep. Part of that you need to spend time with your family, and part of that you need to dedicate time with the Lord. The rest of it is work, but it's not all day. It shouldn't be all day. So just a little bit at each time, you're going to build something. But at the same time, you're going to be able to develop the rest of your life. But so steady work. And then the last part, and I started with the Lord, and I got to end with that too, because that brings in the other aspect of honesty. When you're working together, you need to establish a system of honesty with one another. You need to make sure that as I'm working with somebody, don't cheat each other on the money. Don't expect a lot of free services all the time. If somebody wants to dedicate a few things, you guys want to work something out, work that out up front. But that honesty, that brotherly love, I should say, where you respect one another, and that you're not going to cheat each other, and so you can have this, establish that level of trust while you're working together, so that there's no issues. And when that level of trust is built up between everybody, the work matters. I mean, it's like it just takes a turbo boost. I mean, everyone has this sense. As human beings, once we are on accord with one another, it's like this bond forms, and whatever we had set our minds to do just escalates, because within that bond is trust that's built in, and then respect for one another. When we have that for each other, then everything I've said before about innovating, about working together, about educating yourself, getting community support, all that combines together. And so those of you who are just coming in, I'm just going to reiterate our points because we have just a few minutes, about another minute left. I mentioned about Silicon Valley in the Hood that is bringing innovation into your neighborhood, not just in Silicon Valley, but bringing it into your neighborhood. Gain support for the innovation. That means going to the government offices, going to police, the schools, churches, military, wherever establishments are in your area. Get to know those people in those areas on a personal level. Show up to the meetings. Share your ideas and your perspective. That way you guys build established relationship on a human level, not just the work level and professional level. You get down to the human level where everyone is. Educate yourself. Keep learning. No matter how good you are in your craft, there's always more to learn. And even if you don't feel like you're good at it, it goes back to learning. You got to learn more. The next thing is, while you're working together, use your differences. So you want to have people who are different from you, because that gives you a different perspective on what you're trying to do. And then combine common strengths. And the last two is steady work, and then once again the Lord, that brings out the honesty and the combination of love and trust with one another. So we're going to be back next week, 11 o'clock Central Time, Eyes of the Universe. And this was host Michael McCullough. Keep listening to the Bridge of Light Radio. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you later.